Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. Today, I have a beautiful guest with me. This is Lisa. She is an author, a speaker, and a galactic ambassador. Lisa, thank you for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here with you.
So, Galactic Ambassador, I'm sure that grabbed everyone's attention right off the bat. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's been a long time in the making to really fulfill my role as a galactic ambassador. I have been an experiencer contactee my entire life with ETs and the UFO phenomena, and including being on spacecraft. And I now channel 13 different higher dimensional galactic races. And so, really, most of my life, I had to hide that side of myself. But 4 years ago, I moved here to Hawaii, specifically to the Big Island. And that's when I really stepped into my full authentic self and really embraced that galactic side of me and then understood what I was meant to do.
That's awesome. So, what enabled you, do you feel, to step fully into yourself in that way?
So, Um, my first three careers were very mainstream. So I have a PhD in biology. And so I was in that very tight academic box. And even in grad school, when I would share with my grad student friends my experiences with the ETs and my belief in things like Sasquatch and mermaids and dragons and things, they all thought I was crazy because we were zoologists and that kind of thing. And they were like, there's no evidence that those things exist. And so I learned at that point, okay, I need to keep my mouth shut to be taken seriously in this career. And then when I left academia, then I was in mortgage for 5 years, so very normal. Then I also had an interior design home staging business for 12 years. And so in that real estate world, to be taken seriously, I had to hide the spiritual and ET kind of side of myself. So it's really when I moved here to Hawaii, I let go of my design company. Back in Olympia, Washington, where I'm from, I had been simultaneously running my spiritual business with my design company. And so when I let the design company go and moved here, it was like, okay, all the masks need to come off now. There's no more hiding who I am. It's time. And I had had different opportunities to really connect specifically with my Arcturian family. And so they were really pressing on me when I got here to be like, okay, it's time to start channeling. It's time to start speaking about all of this. And I ended up starting a night sky watch UFO tour here on the island. So I was educating people about this phenomena and sharing my stories. And then that led to me writing books about it and starting my own podcast.
It's amazing. So do you just completely feel so free now? I can just imagine it was like
I do.
just shedding this giant weight and you're like, I can do this now. It's so amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely do. But it was like a mindset thing where I really had to embrace what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yes.
And because there are people out there in the world that probably think I'm totally crazy, like some of my former friends and even ex-husband, he's very sarcastic about it. And, but I don't care. It's like, this is who I'm meant to be. And when I did fully step into this, then other people were feeling validated by their own
Mm,
experiences. They were
yeah.
feeling seen. And so it's like I've been attracting my real soul tribe, and we're all finding each other again, in this life. And it's so I have closer, deeper relationships than I've ever had.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, don't you? That it's that you do bring those people in because we're so afraid. We're living in this fear, shell over here, hiding and everything because we do think about it. I mean, let's face it, we're human, right? We do think about what are other people going to think and how am I going to be received in the world. So tell us a little bit more about that. How did that feel to you to be able to bring those people in that way?
So, well, number one, I have spent most of my life feeling like unworthy and unlovable, and I was a perfectionist to try to feel like I could be loved and have that worthiness. And I had abandonment issues and all of these things that I've had to work through that I created. I chose my family specifically so I could work through these. And when I fully, again, embraced myself, that's when people started coming in. And so again, like I feel so much support from my earth human people, but also my massive team from beyond, whether it's galactic, angelic, elemental, or past loved ones, all of that. Um, Now I get it. It's like I have created this really beautiful life, this beautiful environment where I'm able to stay in a much higher vibrational reality than I did in my former life and with real authentic connections. And so, I mean, it's like a night and day difference.
That's amazing. I can just hear it in your voice and feel it in your energy of how much that is has been impactful for you.
Yeah. And, I think that the one of the roles that I have is not just really as that galactic ambassador to help bridge the understanding of the ET realm, but really just to help anyone, no matter what their authentic self is to show that like it's safe to do so. There are people that will be attracted to you, that will be part of your friendship circle and even partner in life. And so, really, there's nothing to be afraid of in being who you are.
Yeah. It is super scary though. I mean, when we first start out, it's we don't need to be afraid, but that fear is so just it's sneaky. Like it comes in when we don't even realize it's there and we wonder what's holding us back. And when we dig into it, that's what we find is it's the fear. So how can we encourage people to put that aside so that they can step fully into themselves?
Well, there are a lot of different fears that can come up. People have fear of failure, fear of success, fear of
Yeah.
death, all these things, right?
Uh,
And it's like, okay, we're here as humans, but this is not our only existence of reality. We are multidimensional beings.
mm,
And the more that we can trust ourselves, so one of the things that I help people do is I help clear blockages and limitations to really help them work through those fears and any stuck trauma holding them back. But really, when we start clearing all of that stuff and we start learning to trust our own inner wisdom, and we might have opportunities come our way, and even if there's fear to take the step onto that path, even if we just take that first step, just a little baby step, then the next step will show itself. And so we don't have to know the whole path. In fact, we're not going to, but it's just taking little nuggets, little pieces, little steps. And the more that people do that, then they trust themselves more because they're being shown evidence that it is okay to walk through that. So it's not that I haven't ever had fear. I mean, I've had massive timeline shifts in this 52 years of life, four careers, three husbands, two children, and moving here to Hawaii in the middle of COVID. I mean, just massive things. And there were a lot of things that I could have been afraid of, like leaving academia. I had worked so hard. I have a PhD, I'm a professor. Um, and I knew that there was going to be something better. So it's really, um, I guess, again, being able to walk through the fear, even if it's there. But I've also always had coaches and mentors hold my hand because I am someone that really wants that support.
yeah.
And I feel, and one of the modalities I do is human design, and 67% of people don't have the willpower to complete something. And I'm one of those. And that's when we need mentors, accountability partners, coaches.
It's really tough to find an accountability partner that will stick around. Sometimes that's what I've found. But at any rate, what would you say to people who don't have the financial means to have a mentor or a coach hold their hand? Because I find that I was in that place myself, and I find that that's a very common place to be. It's not because they don't want to elevate
Mhm.
themselves, but they just simply don't have the means to have that. So, what would you say to those people?
Well, so I was in that position when I started my home staging interior design business. I was brand new, building it ground up. And so I found a few friends that had a similar mindset that we wanted to grow, and we created a little mastermind. It was free. We dedicated ourselves once a week to getting together, to helping brainstorm for each other, even writing down, affirmations. And so one of the things that I would do is, because I had a certain income level that I wanted to reach. And so I started with, an obtainable amount. It wasn't like, okay, all of a sudden overnight, I'm going to be making $100,000 or $200,000 a year. It was like, okay, no, let's start out. How about 4,000 a month to cover the bills? And so I would write lines, I would create that mindset, but that mastermind would also help to support that energy, because when
Mm,
multiple minds come together, it creates something exponential. And so really, like, you can find people, and as long as you commit to each other, you can make it happen.
yeah. So I'm hearing you that the important piece of that, though, is the positive side of it, the positive mindset, the bringing it in, even though you're not seeing it in the physical reality.
Yeah, and actually, my newest book that's coming out January 16th, which is called Awakening to Your Multidimensional Self, it's all about shifting timelines, like choosing what timeline you want to be a part of and creating that mindset where you are so fully focused and in the emotion as if that
Mm.
reality is true for you. Then you will shift into that naturally, or it will come to you either way. But really, that's manifestation 101 right there.
It
Hold the
is.
focus, be in the emotion. And when you are speaking, you're speaking and acting as if that is your reality.
Mm. Yeah. And I firmly believe in that too. And that has been, in my experience, one of the most difficult things for me to do is look at things right now as if I have them, even though I'm looking at my physical reality going, I don't see that. Like, where is it? You know what I mean? So, how do people slowly start to get themselves to embrace that concept? Because it is really difficult. We live in a very 3D, logical minded world.
Yeah, well, and I was there too, right? Back when I was in my normal careers, I was in the reality, even though I had been trained since I was 13 years old to understand manifestation, because I grew up in a spiritual school of enlightenment. But I'm human, and I got out of that and was doing my careers and all that. And for me, and this is something that I teach about, write about as well, and it really does work, is finding things that you are grateful for, finding things that you have abundance all around you. And so, even if it's waking up in the morning, three things that you're grateful for. And then when you go to bed, three things that you're grateful for. And again, you can be grateful for tangible things that are in your current reality, but then you can also be grateful for things that you want to create, but you're grateful as if they are already there. And
Yes.
then with the abundance thing, my mentor, Sunny, she's had me do this exercise for at different points in the last 7.5 years, where she's like, go around and make a list of all the things that you have abundance in your life. So it could be an abundance of love, an abundance of relationships, an abundance of vehicles or food, or, I'm grateful that I have this house, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the more that you are seeing abundance in different ways, it doesn't have to just be your bank account, but the more that you are seeing that abundance in different areas and you're grateful for it, then you're creating the energy of more abundance and gratitude. So it's really just a frequency vibration.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And gratitude is one of the things that sounds so super simple, and people think if it's that easy, then I mean it's just not. I mean, like, how is it possible? That's what they're thinking. I know I did in the beginning when I first started my spiritual journey. I thought there like no way, it can't be that easy. Just be grateful. But it is
Mhm.
super powerful.
Well, it is because, where our attention goes, that's what we're creating in our life. And
Yeah.
so the people who are really focusing on, let's say, the news, the media, the politics, the wars in the world, all this stuff that's we deem bad or negative, the more that your attention is there, the more you're going to create that kind of stuff in your life. And so 3 years ago, my ETs were like, no more news. You stay completely above and out of politics. Nothing that is part of the polarized reality.
Mhm.
But also, they wanted me to be more of a clear channel for that. And so, in doing so, I actively get to create my personal environment that I live in. I get to curate what's in it in terms of what images I'm seeing, what I'm listening to, the people that I allow into my energy space. And all of that really creates an environment. And for me, it's an elevated environment. It doesn't mean that I don't have bad days or bad experiences, that I'm learning through. For instance, you know, just a year plus ago, September of last year, my husband committed suicide. So that was like a massive thing in my life. Like, oh my God, what just happened? And it was an opportunity for me to learn, grow, evolve. And I knew that I had shifted into a massively different kind of timeline.
Mhm.
And I got to choose, okay, well, what am I doing now? What do I need to do to move forward for myself? But also, like, I've got another 50 plus good years of life left. What am I going to do? I'm going to I'm writing my own new book story, right? And so a lot of people, they couldn't understand how I had moved through that grief so fast. And it's not that I don't have moments where I'm like, why do you leave me?
Right.
Right. But I have still been able to maintain that really elevated vibrational reality and be able to teach about it because I've walked it.
Right. And I'm sure that your look on that particular type of transition is a lot different than most people's in our American society anyway, because that makes a huge difference. It really does.
It does. And again, we're multidimensional beings. This is not our only life that we're living. We come in with soul contract agreements with people, and our agreement had been completed. But what's interesting is that after he passed away, so I have a lot of psychic medium friends, and over the last year plus, I've worked with my different friends, and he's come through multiple times through them, and then he comes to me as well in different ways. But he really in the beginning, he's like, I'm sorry that it had to be so extreme. He said, but I couldn't physically support you the way you needed to be supported on earth, but I can do so much more from the other side, and I am supporting you, and I'm going to bring you opportunities and people. And then the other thing that was interesting is he had been kind of on the fence about what I understood spiritually and even with the galactic realm. He supported me, but he didn't fully get it.
Right.
And from the other side, he was like, how I was on the fence? Keep doing what you're doing. It's all real.
Yeah,
So that was beautiful validation.
that's so amazing. And I love how they come from the other side and do that. My mom and dad do that as well. They crossed over 14 hours apart about 3 years ago. And just
Wow.
this past week, they came, and one, my dad always shows up on my left. I don't know why, but he always comes to my left side. My mom just wherever. But my dad came and held my hand, my left hand, and my mom came and held my right hand. And they're like, we're walking with you. And it's, I mean, I can't wait for 2025. Like, I'm so excited about what's coming. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like 2025 is going to be the most stellar, exponentially expansive year to date. Like, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm trying to not future trip on that. However, I do energetically feel something really big is going to happen for me personally, but
Yes.
also for this earth. Yeah. And so I'm trying to be in that excitement again, because it's like, okay, yes, the more if we're excited about what's to come as opposed to doom and gloom, like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen now.
Yeah.
Okay, you can experience that reality, but wouldn't it be better for you mentally to be in that excitement?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift the conversation just a little bit to your more galactic side and allow me to ask you, if you please, about the current activity level of our galactic friends, because I know we sit out in the hot tub at night and look up and we've seen a lot more activity. Is that your experience as well? And if so, why do you feel that is?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I have witnessed the activity, throughout my life, just being connected and attending that spiritual school where we were learning how to really shift our perspective to see through into higher dimensional reality and to communicate with beings beyond this earth. But where I was from in Washington State, okay, lots of UFO activity in the Cascade Mountains, Mount Baker, all the way down to Mount Shasta. And I would see the activity, but then when I moved here to Hawaii, that it was off the charts. And so what was interesting is that when I got here to the island, some of my spiritual friends were like, the veil between dimensions is thinner here, on this island, but probably all the islands. I haven't gone and explored all the islands to look at the activity, but big island specifically. And I really do feel that energetically. We have a lot of vortex energy, kind of like Sedona. There's portals. And so when I was looking at the night sky when I first got here, and I live in the desert part of the island too. So it's clear skies, and we have dark sky ordinance because Mauna Kea Observatory with the telescopes basically sits right behind my neighborhood. And so dark, beautiful skies, and I'm seeing all these things popping out. And so, was it always like that here? I don't know because I've only been here 4 years. But the more that I have been doing the UFO tours over the last 3+ years, the activity, it's always been active. And I maybe around the world, it's picking up a little bit. And I think it's because people are more willing to see it. Because what's interesting is it's all perspective. It's all what your brain is willing to accept. Because you can have two people standing next to each other looking at the same sky. One person, if they have full belief, like, okay, these things are real, they will see the activity. But the person next to them, if they're a total skeptic, they won't see it. And so, really, I think more and more people are coming to the realization like, okay, yes, it's real. Now, our government wants to spin it as we need to perceive it as a threat, which is completely untrue in my experience and reality. If they wanted to do anything to harm us, to take over, to destroy Earth, they would have done so far long ago. They are really here for our benefit. They're trying to keep us from destroying ourselves and destroying Earth. Some of them are our family because we have up to 22 different ET races in our DNA.
Mm,
And so, at some point, and there are certain timelines where perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years, we will have like full open contact where maybe it's the Pleiadians that would land first because they look so much like us. or maybe it's our hybrid children, our Zeta hybrid children, which I'm part of that program. And, so we're going to have open contact. There are going to be other people in timelines where that's not part of their reality, because all timelines are existing simultaneously at the quantum level. And we have different Earth timelines. And it's not good or bad either way. Like, you get to choose which one you want to be a part of. I'm going to be part of open contact because I am here to be ambassador.
Yes, I'm all about that too. Steve and I actually sit out in the hot tub and talk about that quite a bit. I'm so excited about it. It's just, it's so amazing to me. And so let me ask you another question. Do you feel like they have been around like forever, like on our planet? Because I know some people are like, it's a new thing. And I'm like, but I don't feel like it is. I feel like they've been here the whole time, basically.
Okay, I thank you for that question. I love that. And this is, I like talking about this on my tours too, because we have had ET visitors since pretty much the beginning of Earth's history. And, the first known group that has come to Earth was actually during the time of the dinosaurs. And they were the Vegans from the Vega star system in Lyra constellation. And so they came here to Earth, and some of them, and they were very human looking. The human form developed in the Lyra constellation originally, and then they colonized out. But so the Vegans came, and some of them incorporated some of that reptilian DNA into their bodies, creating a human reptilian kind of hybrid. And then others of them incorporated even more of that reptilian DNA into their bodies, creating more of just the reptilian. So you had three different groups. Now, some of those stayed around and are still existing here on Earth. So the human vegans, at some point they left, and then you had other groups colonizing here. So you had Lyrans coming that were harmonious, that ended up then there were other Lyrans that were coming that were kind of warring among each other. So those original Lyrans that came ended up then leaving Earth and colonizing the Pleiades, becoming the Pleiadians, but they were here on Earth first. And so there's this whole rich history that, is not taught in our schools. It's not accepted by mainstream academia, any of that. But even so, one of the modalities that I do, historically, it's called past life regression therapy. I'm changing that to parallel life regression. And one of the methods of doing that is Dolores Cannon's QHHT. And so a couple years ago, there was a lady who had gotten trained in QHHT, and she needed volunteers to work on so she could get her certification. So I volunteered. And one of the lives that I got to see for myself was actually during the building of the pyramids, that time period. Now, this is way more ancient than archaeology understands. And I was not one of the humans. I was one of the ETs. And so from my perspective, so there were two groups of us, and we were from the Sirius star system. My job was a genetic engineer. And so what we were doing is, from our spacecraft, we were sending down the sound frequency energy to the humans to modify their DNA so that they could hold more consciousness and run more energy through their bodies. So we were upgrading that body. There were others of us that were boots on the ground, working directly with the humans to teach them things about medicine, agriculture, astronomy, but then also they were teaching them how to do this sound thought, consciousness vibration up to levitate these megalithic stones, to move them into place, to build things like the pyramids and these massive temples. And so getting to fully experience that in this regression session and seeing exactly what was going on was really incredible. And so, when we're looking at things like the hieroglyphs or the petroglyphs or cave paintings or other things depicting ETs, yeah, we've had visitors throughout humanity's history for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. I imagine that was so much fun to be able to experience that all over again. And get that memory of it back. So that's really cool. So let me ask you a couple questions about that. One, the elevating their DNA or changing their DNA so that they were physically able to do more and be more than a typical human. How do you feel that was experienced in their body? Do you feel like they had physical symptoms? Like I know we talk about ascension symptoms now and whatnot, but they probably didn't have that term back then. How do you did they experience something like that, like we do now, where we have these different, you know, I don't even know what word to use, symptoms in our
I understand what
body?
you're, yeah. Um, I think most likely there was some of that, but there were other people where it didn't affect them in the same way because everyone is vibrating differently, right? Everyone's got a different understanding. And so you can't just say, yes, everyone experienced those physical symptoms, because even right now, as people are waking up, not everyone is experiencing all of that. And some people might read those lists of like, well, why am I not experiencing that? And yet they are in an elevated consciousness. And so we all come in different ways, different forms. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's so cool. I can't even imagine being, I mean, I can't imagine how cool it would be to be a part of that. And did they have a memory of being there and being capable of doing those things, or was it kind of like a temporary state of being for them? And then they forgot it after that. The,
Are you talking
the,
about the humans?
the humans, yes.
Well, so as a culture, as a civilization, they were able to use this technology for a while, and then what happened was their the technology kind of outgrew the spirituality, and egos and power started to come into play, and so that was the downfall of these civilizations. And it's kind of the story of Atlantis. They started out more of a spiritual people, technology outgrew the spirituality, and they ended up destroying their civilization because of this power control mechanism. And so that's how we've gone through a lot of cycles as humanity, over however many hundreds of thousands of years, or even perhaps millions of years. And so now we're at a point where, we have forgotten our power. And now when we're awakening, what we're doing is we are actually activating that latent DNA that resides within us. And so we all have these so-called superpowers. And the more that we keep that vibration elevated, then we're actually activating that DNA so that we can do things like telepathy, remote viewing, enhancing all of our clair abilities, because we all have that inside of us. We can even biolocate, we can walk through walls. There are, you know, different instances in history of people doing this. And
Mm.
so it's just really knowing that we're more than just this earth physical 3D experience.
Yeah, those are so amazing too. Like when you hear experiences like that, I'm so fascinated by it. Do you feel, because I've read a bunch of stuff that talks about the fall of some of these amazing civilizations that we've had throughout time, and it always seems to be that the reason behind that is because of what you just said, ego and control and power and that type of thing. Do you feel like
Yeah.
us humans have learned our lesson as we're waking up now, or do you feel that we are going to go through another cycle? It seems
Um,
counterintuitive to me, but you know.
so I'm going to say both realities exist. And in fact, again, multiple realities exist. So there are some some portion of humanity that's ready to ascend to fifth dimensional reality. And then there are other people that are going to stay back in third dimensional reality where they're still in this polarized experience. And there is no correct timing for anyone. We're all on our own individual journey. And so those that want to keep playing out that polarity cycle, great. At some point, they will then be ready to then shift into higher vibrational experiences. And it may not be in this particular earth life that they do so. And so again, like really all timelines are existing simultaneously. So you get to choose what timeline you want to be a part of. Yeah.
For people that are afraid, that have family that they feel are going to stay in the 3D kind of thing, and then they could shift into the 5D, is there such a distinct separation that they're like, I know people, you hear the splitting of the earth kind of concept where one stays 3D and then you have this whole new earth that's 5D and they're completely separate from each other. For people who are fearful of that, because I've actually seen people hold themselves back and dim themselves down because they don't want to leave behind someone they care about in the 3D world. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, and this is part of the my new book, actually, because one of the things, our egos get so tied to this personality, these stories that we create, and being very specifically tied to specific people, places, things, times, and events. And what I have learned in this life is that we are the only constant in our life.
Mhm.
Everyone is going to pass at some point. Our parents, our friends, our spouses, whoever, our pets. And so we need, if we want to shift, and it's a choice, but we need to let go of people, places, things, times, and events that don't support the new reality that we want to create. And yes, that can be really challenging for people. For me, it's been interesting because, again, with my parents, I didn't feel that close to them. My mother, she was a single mom. Again, I had all these abandonment issues. And so when I went to college, I'm like, I raised myself. I don't need you guys. Now, I did have a coming back with my parents, but I was willing to release them because, you know, I didn't need them. And then even in my different careers, like when I was in academia, I had this whole group of science friends. And when I left academia, they no longer resonated with me. I didn't resonate with them because I was on this massive spiritual journey that they did not understand. And so I was willing to let that world go. And same with Olympia and the real estate industry. I was willing to let those people go. And again, losing my husband in that traumatic way, it wasn't my choice, although it was at a soul contract agreement level. And I had to let him go, right? He chose to let himself go. And so, you know, again, for people that are afraid, you can hold yourself back. And do you really want to? Some people want to stay limited
Mhm.
and their people are the most important thing. And that's okay. Like there's no right or wrong in this. For me, that's not my journey. My journey is, okay, I can let people go. I can change my situation. I can move to a new place because I am the constant in my life.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful concept. And to embrace that so fully is it's really beautiful. I've had a journey with that myself because, like I always say it, no matter where I go, there I am, and that's not, a statement that I've made. It's just one that I do say a lot. It was coined by someone long, long before
Yeah.
me, but it is true. So why hold yourself back? I mean, to me, what is the benefit in that when you can have this amazing experience and draw so many beautiful things into your life by embracing that?
Yeah. Well, and the spiritual school that I again went to throughout my teen years and 20s and early 30s, one of the tenets of the school was to make known the unknown. And so that really, like I've really integrated that, I've embodied it because even with my academic career, my goal when I first started that path towards getting my PhD, I was obsessed with the animals. I just wanted to know about the animals. My goal was not to be a professor. And so when I was a professor, I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. This is not filling me with joy. I love the animals. And so because I had completed that journey, no matter, like, all my friends and family were like, you're crazy for leaving a tenure track job. You've got job security, but, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm done.
Right.
And it's time for something new. And so, a lot of us can get stuck thinking that, okay, well, we need to stay in this situation. We need to stay in this relationship or this job, career, whatever it might be, or we need to stay living in this certain location for whatever reason. And you can choose that, but you can also choose something different as well. And so for me, like, I've just kind of followed different passions. So I was obsessed with the animals. Well, then I also have been creative my entire life. So then I started my interior design home staging business because I needed pretty things, aesthetics. I wanted to be immersed in that world. And then it was time to do the spiritual journey of not just doing it myself, but then being out in the world and writing about and teaching and learning these different modalities.
That is
So,
so cool.
you know, yeah. So it's a journey. Like, I'm just on this really fun earth experience.
Yeah. So, what would you say on a personal level, what your most impactful, fun, humorous, whatever, memorable experience that you would like to share with us? Do you have one that comes to mind?
Ooh, that not that there are too many. So, no, there isn't just one specifically that's coming to mind. Although I would say that I absolutely love being immersed in nature, specifically the ocean, water, the beach. And so I have really thrived living here in Hawaii compared to Olympia, where it's rainy and cloudy 9 months out of the year, Puget Sound water, and even the Pacific Ocean in Washington. It's freezing. You don't want to be in the water. And so, like, I just that alone and going out in nature doesn't cost any money. I can go down to the beach, I can go snorkeling and be with these animals that bring me so much joy. And so really I guess moving here to Hawaii changed me in ways that I had no clue that it would.
Yeah, that's so cool. One of my favorite people on the planet, he's crossed over now, but lived in Hawaii, and that's Wayne Dyer. And he felt
Mhm.
very, drawn to that area too. So it's really interesting how some of the really spiritual people end up there. Not all of
Yeah,
them,
actually,
there's lots of beautiful places
right.
across our planet, but it is interesting.
Yeah, well, and what's really nice is so each of the islands, they have their own energy, but in general, a lot of spiritual people live here in Hawaii. And so it is actually more acceptable to be who you are. And so I think just that energy alone, it's just very different than being back on the mainland.
That's so interesting. I love it. I've never been to Hawaii, but maybe I'll visit one day in the future. That would be cool. I have a few places on my bucket list that I'd like to go. And yeah, so tell us a little bit more about your UFO tours as that's what you call them, correct?
Yeah. So the company, it's a DBA under my company Mystic Mantis, and it's called Big Island UFO Tours. And so this is a night sky watch where we use Generation 3 military night vision goggles to look at the night sky. What the goggles do is they amplify the amount of things that you can actually see. So where our eyes can only perceive so much starlight, with the goggles, like, you'll see 1,000 times more.
Wow.
Of moving objects and stars and all of this. And so I educate people how to identify the known moving objects, really predictable things like airplanes, helicopters, satellites, shooting stars, because those things, you need to know that behavior so that when you're looking at the night sky and you might see some different activity, then you will know, okay, is that something that we do know from our Earth perspective, or is that behavior something completely unusual? And then
Mhm.
we would put that in the UFO, UAP spacecraft category.
Yeah,
And so, and then I educate people. Depends on who's on tour. I have an intro tour for people that are more like, okay, I just want kind of surface level. And then I have a deep dive spiritual extended tour as well, where I lead people through a meditative journey to learn how to raise their vibration and connect with their galactic team and get messages, and then learn how to ask them to show up, to show them signs that they're there.
that is really cool. I had an experience. Hold on. Excuse me just a second here. I had an experience where we were outside and I saw this light just go one direction, and I was like, well, that wasn't a star. And it didn't feel like a falling star because I feel into things as much as I look at them. And so I said
Yes.
out loud, okay, if that was really you, if that was a galactic presence, do it again. So I'll know it's you. And then I felt something happen, but I didn't see anything. And I started laughing and I was like, okay, do it again so I can see it, you know? And then one came from over behind me and across the sky in the opposite direction. And it happened in like a 20-second span of time, all of that. It was pretty amazing.
I love that. I have, can I share a quick story of something that happened last year that was
Absolutely.
a personal experience? It's very similar kind of communication. So, when we're open to it and we can see stuff, we'll have more experiences. So March 7th of last year, I was speaking about my book, Connection to the Cosmos, at our local bookstore an hour away from my home. And so I was sharing with the audience about the ETs. And then on the hour drive home, I'm just telling my team, hey guys, I really, really want to see signs that you're here with me. I was just talking about you. I just need to know you're here to support me. And I didn't see anything until I got about a block away from my house. And right then, I all of a sudden see this really bright light above the tree line. And so I acknowledge it. I'm like, I see you. Stay there. I'm going to go park my car at my house. So I park my car, walk to the end of my driveway, look across. And so what it looked like was a very big, bright, pulsing star above the tree line. And now I am a scientist. There are apps, constellation apps, satellite apps, things like that. It wasn't moving. So I know, okay, it's definitely not a satellite, but I had to rule out that it was not a star and not a planet. Because sometimes Venus, like right now in our sky, Venus is extremely bright and gets mistaken for a spacecraft all the time. And so the app, there was nothing there. And so then I start talking to him like, okay, I know you're a spacecraft. Please do something for me that a spacecraft can do that a star cannot do.
Oh,
And when
nice.
I said that, it completely dimmed out where I couldn't see it anymore. And then a few seconds later, it came back on full brightness. And I got really excited. I was like, do it again, do it again. And it did it again. And then it came back on. I was like, do it again. It did it five because I
Oh,
asked five times. I
yeah.
needed that validation. And so when I stopped asking, then it just stayed on and it was pulsing. And so, and then I'm taking pictures and video, and I always thank them for showing up. But for me, when I was asking, like you wanted to see that proof, right? When I asked, do something for me, then that communication was there and they showed me.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I get so excited when I sit out there and look up at night and we're able to see things. One of the coolest things that we saw was, and I could talk to you about this for like all day, but it was the night of the full moon, so it was the 15th, I think it was, and there was this really thin swath of clouds, like think bridal veil kind of material, like it was, you could see through it but you could tell it was there. And I was looking up at it and all of a sudden you could see something moving behind the cloud next to the moon, and it was about the same size as the moon but no distinct discernible shape. right? So it goes
Mm.
up and I'm just like following it across the sky and it's moving quickly, but not like super fast. And it moves up out of the cloud and across the sky. And I'm turning watching it. When it first came out of the cloud, it kind of had a little bit of cloud looking stuff around it. And it kept going. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, the cloud stuff dropped away and you could still see it moving, and then it was just gone. It just disappeared. It was really, really cool. But there was no discernible shape to it. So I found that
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, and that is actually pretty common. Um, that, but they have different technology, different physics, and so some of these craft are very organic. Um, they're able to do things and be different sizes. Our perception of like, okay, it has to be this
Yeah.
saucer-shaped disc and metallic and all of that. They come in all different kinds of shapes, sizes, realities.
Yeah.
And so yeah. So one of the interesting things is, um, you know, some of the photographs. So this is the other thing that I love doing on tour because I have got a lot of photographs and videos of these craft to show people all the variety of them. And there are things around us all the time that are not visible to our eyes because our
Yeah.
eyes judge, our brains judge, or are not open to something. But cameras and video cameras can often pick up things that our eyes don't see,
Right.
like or craft or other things. And so, you know, there are these craft around us all the time. There are beings, entities living in different dimensional reality all around us. And so with these photos, it's like you can be taking a picture of the sky, whether it's in the daytime, you don't see anything, but then it shows up in your camera,
Yeah.
right? And so so much evidence of that. And sometimes that's how they want to be seen, or maybe because they are operating in a slightly higher dimensional reality of frequency. Um, Again, the camera can pick that up.
Yeah.
And we can learn to see it if we learn to raise our vibration. And I have a couple of methods that I learned, again at my spiritual school, of how to kind of pierce through and elevate that mindset to be able to see things that others wouldn't be able to see.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. And I did catch a picture one time it was in November, actually, the November full moon. And I
Mhm.
was taking a picture of the moon, and I wish I'd had my camera up just a little bit more because when I looked at the picture, to the left and up a little bit from the moon, you could actually see another sphere, but it cut off the top of the sphere. I mean,
Oh,
it is clear and it's not camera flash because I know a lot of times camera
right.
flare. You can
Yeah.
see something, but it is very distinctly another sphere over to the left. I'll have to send it to you so you can see it. But
Okay.
I cut off the top of it because but I couldn't see it when I was just looking at it. You know what I mean? But it showed
Yeah.
up in the picture. It was really cool.
Yeah. Well, I spent last year, I was in Peru for 2 weeks and I took the night vision goggles thinking the night sky was going to be just crazy active in Peru because we were up at like 14,000 feet, in the Sacred Valley in the Andes. And they were not really showing up in the night sky, but they were showing up in our photos during the day. And one of the best pictures that we got, again, clear blue sky. We couldn't see anything abnormal, but it was a perfect sphere in the blue sky. And so that is one of the common shapes. And from my understanding, that is one of the Syrian craft. And the Syrians had a big part in Peru as well as in Egypt and in other places around the world.
That's so
And the
interesting.
one that I was experiencing at my house across the street, that was a Pleiadian craft.
That's so cool. So if people see something like that and they want to know what kind of craft it is from what star system, how do they know that? How do they find that out? Do they just
I mean, we're not going to know most of them. So what's interesting is that the Pleiadian one, Okay, so this story gets even a little weirder. So that was March 7th of me talking to this and it dimming out and coming back on. Well, the next morning, starting around 5:30 a.m., people were starting to drive to work and they're noticing these spaceship clouds, lenticular clouds, all over our island. Now, we do not have the right atmospheric conditions to create lenticular clouds here on the Big Island of Hawaii. We did back in Washington in the Cascades, but not here. But what's super weird is these clouds stayed in place from 5:30 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. So the entire
Wow.
day, all the other clouds were blowing by. These guys were staying in place. It was all over social media. Now, what's interesting is that in 2023, that's when I was leading 13 different sessions, channeling sessions to bring in 13 groups. And that day, March 8th, when these clouds were on our island, that's the day that I was channeling the Pleiadians. So I'm not saying necessarily that I called them in, but I might have.
That is
And
really
so,
cool.
yeah, so that was how I got, and one of the things I have claircognizance is one of my clairs. And so when I saw these clouds and I'm channeling Pleiadians, I'm like, okay, that's how I kind of knew, like, okay, no, this is Pleiadian energy. That one the night before in these clouds. And then some of my friends were texting me, do you see these Pleiadian craft? But we have a very strong connection here in Hawaii with the Pleiadians, very specifically. So that was common. And then the Syrian craft, how I knew that the sphere one. So one of my friends, Danielle Agnew, she is a ufologist and she's been on my podcast and she has very strong communication with the Syrian beings. And so I learned from her that those spherical ones were actually Syrians.
Interesting. I love it. I love finding out all the new stuff that I didn't know before. It's so much fun. So I'm sure everyone else is enjoying it too. So, do you want to tell us about any other programs that you have? I hate to cut this too short, but I don't want to make it too long either and wear out your
Yeah.
welcome or my whatever, you know what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
uh, tell us about more of your programs.
Well, so two of the things that I have coming up in 2025, so February 22nd and 3rd or 21st and 22nd, whatever the Saturday and Sunday is, I am teaching my Galactic Ascension Channel certification program, which is a form of energy healing. And so for people that are already perhaps healers or they want to start a business healing or even just heal themselves, then I'm going to be teaching people how to channel that ET healing energy. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then April 30th to May 4th, I'm leading my next Galactic Experience Retreat here on the Big Island of Hawaii, where it is a deep dive into connecting with all of your higher dimensional galactics and doing that night sky watch every night so that you're seeing the activity and really learning how to communicate and enhance the clair abilities. So those two are the major things coming out. And then again, my book, Awakening to Your Multidimensional Self, Harnessing Energy, Timelines, and Higher Consciousness, comes out January 16th. And I have an oracle card deck that I released already that goes along with the book, or it can be a standalone too. And then we'll see what 2025 wants to bring for other things.
Yes, definitely. Well, that sounds like a great start to the year for you. And I know your cards are very beautiful because I've seen you posting some little sneak peeks at those cards as well on your Facebook page. So they're beautiful.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
you're very welcome. So, and I will link all of your stuff in the description box below the video so everyone can find you and see all of your things and maybe go to Hawaii to see you and enjoy this beautiful interactive event that you do. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, and just one more thing that I'm offering on my website, and it's the mysticmanta.com website or Dr. Lisa J. Thompson website, is I do have a free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic guides. And so that's something that when you download, you can do it as much as you want. And so what's interesting is I've heard feedback from people that do it multiple times. Sometimes it's the same group that comes in and they get deeper and deeper information connection. Other times, I've had other people where it's a different group every time. And so,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
so that's
I can't
something
believe I
fun to
haven't done that
experiment.
yet. That sounds amazing. I'll have to get on there and do that myself because it's always fun. So that's so cool.
Mhm.
So thank you, Dr. Lisa, for joining me today. I really appreciate you. This has been an amazing conversation. I know everyone's going to enjoy it and maybe have more questions, which I hope they'll post in the comments. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for dropping in to listen to this beautiful episode of Spiritually Speaking. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all your friends, especially the ones who like all of the galactic stuff. So thank you, and we will see you on the next one. As always, I love you all.